The day agreed to marry a human was the day she believed her life had ended. She stood in the great hall of the imperial palace, her silver skin catching the light from the twin suns that poured through the crystal windows. Her people were tall, elegant, and proud. They had ruled this sector of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered worlds, built empires, and shaped the destiny of countless species. And now they were asking her to marry a human. Her father, Emperor, sat on his throne with tired eyes. The war with the humans had lasted 12 years. 12 years of death. 12 years of ships burning in the void. 12 years of mothers crying for their children who would never come home. "It is the only way," said. His voice was heavy with exhaustion. "The humans will not stop. They do not know how to stop. For every ship we destroy, they build 10 more. For every soldier we kill, 20 take his place. They are like water. They fill every crack, every hole, every space we leave empty." Clenched her fists, "Then we fight harder." "We have nothing left to fight with," leaned forward. "My daughter, I have sent 3 million of our finest warriors to their deaths. Our shipyards are empty, our people are starving. The humans offer peace, real peace, but they want something in return." Me said, "A marriage, a union between our houses. They believe it will bind our species together." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "They are fools. Marriage means nothing to them. They divorce, they separate, they abandon their partners like old clothes. Why would they think this would matter to us?" Because their leader chose his finest soldier for this union, a man named Ho. They say he ended battles with a single command. They say armies surrendered at the sound of his name. By offering him, they show respect. "A soldier's lip curled. They send me a killer." "They send you a hero. To them there is no greater gift." Turned away from her father, she walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Millions of went about their lives, unaware that their princess was about to be sold for peace. Children played in the streets. Merchants sold their goods. Lovers walked hand in hand through the gardens. All of this would burn if the war continued. She closed her eyes. When does he arrive? Tomorrow. The human ship entered space at exactly the agreed time, stood at the landing platform with her guards, watching the vessel descend through the clouds. It was a small ship, simple and without decoration. The humans did not believe in showing off their power. They simply used it. The door opened and prepared herself to meet a monster. What stepped out was not what she expected. Ho was shorter than her by nearly a head. His skin was a warm brown, his hair black and cut close to his skull. He wore simple clothes, dark pants, and a gray shirt with no medals, no symbols of rank, no signs of his supposed greatness. He looked ordinary, completely, utterly ordinary. Ho walked down the ramp and stopped in front of. He bowed, a deep and respectful bow that surprised her. "Princess," he said. His voice was soft, calm, almost gentle. "Thank you for accepting this arrangement. I know it was not your choice. I will do my best to be worthy of your sacrifice." Stared at him. This was the great warrior. This was the man who had ended battles. He looked like he could not hurt a small animal, let alone command armies. "You speak our language," she said. "I have studied it for 6 months. I wanted to honor your culture." 6 months is not enough to learn. "I know, my pronunciation is terrible. I apologize." His pronunciation was, in fact, nearly perfect. Did not tell him this. "Follow me," she said. "I will show you to your quarters." They walked through the palace in silence, kept her pace fast, hopping. The human would struggle to keep up with her longer legs. He did not. He matched her step for step without complaint, without even breathing hard. She showed him to a room in the east wing. It was large and comfortable, but far from her own chambers. She had made sure of that. "This is where you will stay," she said. "Meals will be brought to you. You may walk in the gardens, but you will not enter the main palace without permission. Do you understand?" Ho looked around the room. He nodded. Yes, thank you, it is more than I deserve. It is exactly what you deserve, nothing more. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Princess. She looked back. I know you hate me, Ho said. I know you see me as the enemy. I cannot change what I am or what I have done. But I want you to know that I did not ask for this marriage. I was ordered to accept it just as you were. We are both prisoners of peace. Felt something twist in her chest. She pushed it down. Do not compare yourself to me, human. You know nothing of what I have lost. She left before he could respond. The wedding took place 3 days later. It was a grand ceremony, broadcast across both empires. Billions watched as took the hand of her human husband and spoke the ancient vows of her people. She felt nothing, her heart was ice. Ho spoke his vows in, he had memorized every word. His voice did not shake, his hands did not tremble. He stood before her with quiet dignity, accepting his role without complaint. When it was over, they stood together on the balcony and waved to the crowds below. And humans stood side by side, cheering for the union that would end the war. They are happy, Ho said quietly. They are naive, replied. Peace built on a forced marriage will not last. Perhaps, but it gives them hope. Is that not worth something? Did not answer. That night they were led to the royal chambers. Tradition demanded they share a room, had expected Ho to make demands, to assert himself as her husband. Instead, he took a blanket and a pillow and made a bed on the floor. What are you doing? She asked. Sleeping, he said. You do not want me in your bed. I will not force myself where I am not wanted. The servants will talk. Let them talk. Your comfort matters more than their gossip. He lay down on the floor and closed his eyes. Within minutes, his breathing became slow and even. He was asleep. Lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. She did not understand this human. He was supposed to be a killer, a monster, a beast of war. But he slept on the floor without complaint. He spoke softly and bowed deeply. He worried about her comfort. It made no sense. Over the following weeks, watched Ho carefully. She expected him to reveal his true nature, to show the violence that must be hiding beneath his calm surface. He never did. Every morning he woke before dawn and sat in the garden completely still. She learned this was called meditation, a human practice for calming the mind. He would sit for an hour, sometimes 2, as the sun rose around him. He was kind to the servants, learning their names and thanking them for their work. He ate whatever food was given to him without complaint, even dishes that made other humans sick. He spent hours in the library, reading history and philosophy. One day found him helping an old gardener carry heavy pots of soil. The gardener was a member of the species that had killed millions of humans, but Ho lifted the pots with a smile, chatting with the old man about flowers. Why do you do that? Asked later. Do what? Help them, talk to them. They are beneath you. Ho frowned. No one is beneath me. We are all just people trying to live our lives. The gardener has worked in this palace for 60 years. He knows more about these gardens than anyone alive. Why would I not want to learn from him? He is a servant. He is a person. His job does not change his worth. Shook her head. You are strange, human. Perhaps, or perhaps your people have forgotten something important. And what is that? That kindness is not weakness. That treating others with respect does not make you less. That the measure of a person is not their rank or their power, but how they treat those who have none. Had no response to this. She walked away, troubled by his words. As the months passed, the court began to whisper. They said the princess had married a coward. They said the great human warrior was nothing but a soft fool. They mocked him for his meditation, his kindness, his refusal to fight. Ho heard the whispers, knew he heard them, but he never responded, he never defended himself. He simply continued his quiet routine day after day as if the words did not touch him. One evening, a young noble approached Ho in the great hall. His name was, and he was known for his cruelty. "Human," said loudly so everyone could hear, "I challenge you to a duel unless you are too afraid." The hall went silent, all eyes turned to Ho. Felt her heart race. This was it. This was where the mask would fall. This was where the killer would emerge. Ho looked at for a long moment, then he smiled. "No," he said simply. "No," laughed. "The great warrior refuses to fight." "I did not refuse to fight. I refused to duel you. There is a difference." "What difference?" "A duel is entertainment. Fighting is survival. I do not fight for entertainment." "You are a coward." "Perhaps," Ho turned back to his meal, "or perhaps I simply have nothing to prove to you." His face turned red with rage. He reached for his sword, but before he could draw it, Ho spoke again. "If you draw that weapon, you will force me to defend myself. I do not want to hurt you. Please sit down, eat. Let us enjoy the evening." Something in Ho's voice made pause. It was not a threat. It was not anger. It was something else. Something that made the young noble's hand tremble. Released his sword and walked away without another word. Watched Ho return to his meal as if nothing had happened. He did not look proud or relieved. He simply ate his food in silence. That night could not sleep. She kept thinking about the look in his eyes. She had seen that look before, in soldiers who had faced death and survived. What had seen in Ho's eyes? What was her husband hiding? She looked at him sleeping peacefully on the floor, his face calm and innocent. He looked so ordinary, so harmless, but was beginning to suspect that Ho was anything but ordinary. And she was starting to fear what would happen when his true self finally emerged. 6 months had passed since the wedding, and still did not understand her husband. She had tried to ignore him at first. She had treated him like furniture, something that existed in her space but did not matter. But Ho made that impossible. Not because he demanded attention, but because he was always there, always quiet, always watching the world with those calm brown eyes. He confused her, he frustrated her, and lately he had started to fascinate her. Every morning she would wake to find his blanket neatly folded in the corner. He still slept on the floor, even though she had stopped protesting months ago. He said he had grown used to it, that hard surfaces were better for his back. She did not believe him, but she did not argue. By the time she dressed and came to the garden, he would already be there, sitting, breathing, still as a statue while the world woke around him. Today, she decided to watch him. She hid behind a pillar and observed as the first light of dawn touched his face. His eyes were closed. His hands rested on his knees. His chest rose and fell with slow, measured breaths. He looked peaceful, completely at peace in a way she had never felt in her entire life. A small bird landed on his shoulder. Ho did not move. The bird hopped down his arm, pecked at his hand, and flew away. Still, he did not move. An hour passed, then 2. Legs grew tired, but Ho remained perfectly still. Finally, he opened his eyes. He stood slowly, stretched his arms above his head, and turned directly toward her hiding spot. "Good morning, Princess," he said. "Would you like to join me tomorrow? It is easier than watching from behind a pillar." Felt her face grow warm. She stepped out from her hiding place, her pride demanding she show no embarrassment. "I was not watching you." "Of course not." There was a small smile on his lips. "You were simply admiring the architecture. The pillars here are very beautiful." "Do not mock me." "I would never." He bowed his head slightly. "Forgive me, I meant no offense." They stood in silence for a moment. The garden was quiet except for the singing of birds and the soft splash of the fountain. "What do you think about?" asked suddenly. "When you sit there for hours, what fills your mind?" Ho considered the question. "Nothing." "Nothing." "That is the goal, to empty the mind completely, To exist without thought, without worry, without fear, just being. That sounds impossible. It is very difficult. I have practiced for 20 years and I still cannot do it perfectly, but the practice itself brings peace. Why do you need peace? You are a warrior. Warriors thrive on conflict. Something flickered across Ho's face. It was gone in an instant but caught it. Pain, deep old pain. Warriors need peace more than anyone, he said quietly. We carry things that others do not, memories that do not fade, faces that visit us in dreams. The only way to survive is to find stillness. What kind of memories? Ho was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Would you like to have breakfast? I am quite hungry. He walked away before she could ask more questions. That afternoon visited the palace library. She had access to all records, including classified military files from the war. She had never bothered to read them before. Now she searched for one name. Ho. What she found made her blood run cold. The files were extensive. Page after page of battle reports, mission summaries, and casualty counts. Ho had not been just any soldier. He had been the commander of the 8th Division, a special unit that had been deployed to the most dangerous theaters of the war. He had fought in the Battle of, where 10,000 humans had held a space station against 50,000 soldiers for 3 weeks. 9,000 humans died, but the station never fell. He had led the raid on the supply lines destroying enough ships and resources to cripple their offensive for 6 months. He had been present at the siege of Earth's moon, where forces had come within hours of reaching the human. Ho had organized the defense and pushed them back. But it was the last entry that stopped her breath. The massacre of Selene Prime. Knew about Selene Prime. Every did. It was a colony world, home to 2 million civilians. During the war, a general had ordered the destruction of the human settlement on the planet. The attack had killed 300,000 human colonists, mostly women and children. The humans had responded with fury. Ho had led the counterattack. He had taken back the planet in 6 hours. The military force, 15,000 soldiers, had been completely destroyed, not defeated, destroyed. The reports used that word specifically. But here was the part that confused. After the battle, Ho had found 2,000 civilians hiding in a shelter. Women, children, elderly, the families of the soldiers who had killed his people. His own soldiers had wanted revenge. They had demanded blood for blood. Ho had refused. He had personally guarded the shelter for 3 days until transport ships arrived. He had made sure every civilian was safely evacuated. He had threatened to shoot any human soldier who tried to harm them. The report included a quote from Ho. "We do not make war on children. The moment we do, we become the monsters we are fighting against." Closed the file. Her hands were shaking. This was the man who slept on her floor. This was the man who helped old gardeners and bowed to servants. This was the man who let young nobles insult him without response. He had killed 15,000 soldiers and saved 2,000 civilians in the same day. How was she supposed to understand someone like that? That evening she found Ho in the kitchen. He was cooking. The palace chef stood nearby, looking deeply uncomfortable. Royalty did not cook. It simply was not done. "What are you doing?" asked. "Making dinner." Ho did not look up from the pot he was stirring. "I used to cook for my soldiers. It helps me relax." "You cooked for your soldiers?" "Of course. A commander who shares meals with his troops earns their loyalty. Besides, military food is terrible. Someone had to make it edible." Watched him work. His movements were efficient and practiced. He chopped vegetables quickly, his knife moving in a blur. He adjusted seasonings by smell alone. He moved around the kitchen like he had been born there. "You are very skilled," she admitted. "My mother taught me. She believed every person should know how to feed themselves, regardless of rank or wealth." Your mother sounds wise. She was. Ho's hands paused for just a moment. She died in the first year of the war, a raid on our home city. Felt something cold settle in her stomach. I am sorry. It was a long time ago. He resumed cooking. I do not blame your people. War creates orphans on all sides. That is why it must end. Is that why you agreed to this marriage? To honor your mother? Ho was quiet for a moment. I agreed because I was tired of fighting, tired of burying friends, tired of being the person everyone expected me to be. He finally looked at her. I thought perhaps here with you I could find a different life, a quieter life. And have you found it? I have found something. I am not sure yet what to call it. He returned to his cooking. A few minutes later he presented her with a bowl of soup. It smelled incredible. Please, he said, tell me what you think. Took a careful sip. The flavor was rich and complex, warming her from the inside. It is good, she said, very good. Ho smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had ever seen from him. They ate together in the kitchen, sitting on simple stools while the chef watched in horrified fascination. Ho told her about human food, about the thousands of different cuisines that existed on Earth alone. He spoke of spices that could make your mouth burn and desserts that could make you cry with sweetness. Found herself laughing, actually laughing. She could not remember the last time that it happened. You are not what I expected, she said. Neither are you. What did you expect? A cold, proud princess who would treat me like a prisoner. He smiled again. I was mostly right. I have treated you terribly. You have treated me like an enemy. That is understandable. I was your enemy. In many ways, I still am. But you are not my enemy, not anymore. Ho set down his bowl. Are you certain? We have been married for 6 months and this is the first real conversation we have had. I do not know your favorite color. I do not know your childhood dreams. I do not know what makes you laugh or cry or rage. We are strangers, princess, married strangers. Considered this. He was right. She had spent 6 months watching him, judging him, waiting for him to reveal some hidden evil. She had never once tried to actually know him. My favorite color is blue, she said. Like the deep ocean on the northern continent. When I was a child, I wanted to be an explorer. I dreamed of discovering new worlds, new species, new wonders. Instead, I became a princess, trapped in a palace, used as a bargaining chip for peace. Ho listened without interrupting. I laugh at clever jokes and stupid accidents. I cry when I see children suffer. I rage when I see injustice ignored. She met his eyes. Now you know me better than most people in this palace. Thank you for trusting me with that. What about you? What makes you laugh and cry and rage? Ho thought for a moment. I laugh at absurdity. The universe is so vast and strange, and we take ourselves so seriously. Sometimes you have to laugh at the cosmic joke of existence. That sounds very philosophical. I cry for lost chances. Every person who dies in war is a universe of possibilities destroyed. Every child who grows up without parents carries a wound that never fully heals. I cry for what could have been. And what makes you rage? His eyes grew distant. Cruelty, deliberate, unnecessary cruelty. People who hurt others because they can. People who use power to crush those weaker than themselves. His voice hardened. That is the one thing I cannot forgive. The one thing that wakes the soldier inside me. Remembered the report. 15,000 soldiers destroyed in 6 hours. She understood now. It had not been revenge. It had been rage. Pure, righteous rage against those who had murdered innocents. You are a complicated man, Ho. I am just a man, nothing more, nothing less. I do not believe that. He smiled sadly. Neither do I most days. That night made a decision. She had extra blankets brought to the room and made a proper bed on the floor beside her own. You do not have to sleep on hard ground anymore, she said. Ho looked at the makeshift bed with surprise. "Thank you." "It is nothing. You are my husband. You deserve at least basic comfort." He lay down on the blankets and sighed with obvious relief. "This is much better." "Good night, Ho." "Good night." It was the first time she had used his name. He noticed. She could see it in his eyes. As she drifted off to sleep, realized something had changed between them. She did not know what to call it. But for the first time since her wedding day, she did not feel quite so alone. And somewhere in the darkness, she heard Ho whisper something in his native language. She did not understand the words, but they sounded like a prayer. Or perhaps a warning. 1 year after the wedding, the peace was holding. Trade routes had opened between human and space. Diplomats traveled freely between worlds. Children on both sides grew up learning about the other species, not as monsters but as neighbors. Watched all of this with growing wonder. She had expected the peace to crumble within months. She had expected old hatreds to tear it apart. Instead, it grew stronger every day. And so did her feelings for her husband. She did not know when it had started. Perhaps it was the morning she found him teaching young servants to read. Perhaps it was the evening he spent 3 hours listening to an elderly noble ramble about the old days, showing genuine interest in stories everyone else found boring. Perhaps it was the night she woke from a nightmare and found him already awake, ready with warm tea and quiet company. Ho never pushed. He never demanded. He simply existed beside her, steady as a mountain, patient as the rising sun. They talked every day now. Real conversations, not just formal exchanges. He told her about Earth, about the vast oceans and the endless forests and the cities that glowed like stars at night. She told him about the crystal caves beneath the northern mountains and the singing flowers that bloomed only once every 100 years. They laughed together. They ate together. They walked through the gardens together and sometimes would catch herself reaching for his hand before stopping herself. She was not ready for that, not yet, but she was beginning to think she might be someday. Today was the anniversary of the peace treaty. Delegations from both species had gathered at the palace for a grand celebration. Hundreds of guests filled the great hall, dressed in their finest clothes, drinking and dancing and celebrating the end of war. Stood near the throne, greeting guests with practiced grace. She wore a gown of deep blue, her favorite color, and her silver skin had been decorated with traditional markings of celebration. Ho stood beside her. He wore a simple black suit that somehow made him look more distinguished than any of the decorated nobles around him. His posture was relaxed, but had learned to read him well enough to notice the tension in his shoulders. "What is wrong?" she asked quietly. "I do not know. Something feels off." "Off how?" "I cannot explain it. A feeling in my gut, like before a battle when you know something is coming but cannot see it yet." Scanned the crowd. Everything looked normal. Guests chatted and laughed. Servants moved through the room with trays of food and drink. Guards stood at their posts, alert but calm. "You are being paranoid," she said. "Probably, forgive me, old habits." But he did not relax. His eyes continued to move across the room, watching, measuring, calculating. An hour later, Emperor called for silence. He stood before the assembled crowd, his voice carrying through the great hall. "Friends, we gather today to celebrate 1 year of peace. 1 year without war. 1 year where mothers have not had to bury their children. 1 year where fathers have not had to send their sons to die." The crowd murmured in agreement. This peace was built on sacrifice. My daughter gave up her freedom to marry a stranger. Her husband gave up his old life to start a new one. Together, they have shown us that humans can live side by side. Raised his glass. To Princess and her husband, Ho, may their union continue to guide us toward a brighter future. To the Princess and her husband, the crowd echoed. Smiled and nodded. Beside her, Ho bowed his head in humble acknowledgement. And then the lights went out. For a moment there was confused silence, then someone screamed. The sound of energy weapons filled the darkness. Bright flashes of light-illuminated figures in black armor moving through the crowd with terrible efficiency. Guests fell. Guards fell. The screaming grew louder. Felt Ho grab her arm and pulled her down behind the throne. "Stay here," he said. His voice had changed. Gone was the soft, gentle tone she had grown to know. This voice was cold, hard, commanding. "What is happening?" Assassins, at least 30 of them, professional military formation. He was completely calm, as if discussing the weather. "They are after you. You are the symbol of the peace. Kill you and the treaty dies." "How do you know that?" "Because it is what I would do." The gunfire continued. Heard her father's voice shouting orders. She heard guards fighting back. She heard people dying. "I have to help," she said. "You have to survive. That is how you help." "My father is out there." "Your father has guards. You have me." Ho looked into her eyes. In the darkness she could barely see his face, but she felt the intensity of his gaze. "I will not let them touch you. Do you understand? No matter what happens, you will survive this night." "Ho, promise me you will stay hidden. Promise me." She had never heard him use her name with such force. It was almost desperate. "I promise." He nodded, then he stood and walked into the chaos. Pressed herself against the back of the throne, her heart pounding. Through the legs of the heavy chair, she could see flashes of light and moving shadows. The sounds of combat were deafening. And then she heard something that made her blood freeze. "Find the princess, kill everyone else." They were looking for her. They would search the entire hall. They would find her hiding spot. She had to move. Crawled along the floor, staying low, using the bodies of fallen guests as cover. She felt sick. These were people she knew, people who had come to celebrate peace. Now they lay still and silent, their eyes staring at nothing. She made it to a side door and slipped through. The hallway beyond was dark and empty. She ran. Behind her she heard footsteps, multiple footsteps moving fast. There the princess. Ran faster. Her gown caught on a corner and tore. She kicked off her shoes and sprinted barefoot on the cold stone floor. The footsteps grew closer. She turned a corner and crashed into something solid. Hands grabbed her. She screamed and fought, but the grip was too strong. "It is me." "Ho." She stopped fighting. In the dim light from a distant window, she could see his face. There was blood on his cheek, but his eyes were clear and focused. "How did you find me?" "I know how you think. You would try to reach the gardens. This is the fastest route." Behind them, the footsteps grew louder. Ho pushed her against the wall and stood in front of her, blocking the hallway with his body. "There is a hidden passage behind the tapestry at the end of this hall. Go, I will hold them here." "Hold them? You are unarmed." "I know." "Ho, there are at least 5 of them, with guns. You cannot." "Go now." The assassins appeared around the corner. 5 figures in black armor, their weapons raised. They saw Ho standing alone in the hallway, blocking their path. One of them laughed. "The human husband. We were told you were a great warrior. You do not look like much." Ho did not respond. He simply stood there, his hands at his sides, his body relaxed. "Step aside," the assassin said. "We only want the princess. You do not have to die." "No," Ho said. "No. I will not step aside. I will not let you touch her. And you are right. I do not have to die tonight." His voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. "But you do." The assassin raised his weapon. And Ho moved. Had never seen anything like it. She had watched soldiers train. She had seen masters of combat demonstrate their skills, but this was something else entirely. Ho was not fighting, he was destroying. The first assassin died before he could pull the trigger. Ho closed the distance in a single step, grabbed the weapon, turned it against its owner, and fired. The body had not hit the ground before Ho was moving to the second target. He flowed like water, he struck like lightning. Every movement was precise, economical, perfect. There was no wasted energy, no hesitation, no mercy. The second assassin fell with a broken neck. The third fired wildly, but Ho was already behind him. A sharp twist and the assassin collapsed. The fourth tried to run. Ho threw a knife he had taken from one of the bodies. It hit the fleeing figure between the shoulder blades. The fifth assassin backed against the wall, trembling. He dropped his weapon and raised his hands. "Please," he begged. "Please, I surrender, I—" Ho did not stop. He walked forward with steady, unhurried steps. "Wait," said. "He surrendered, you cannot." "He would have killed you." Ho's voice was empty of emotion. "He would have killed everyone in that hall. Surrender means nothing to someone who murders innocents." "Ho, please." He stopped. For a long moment he stood motionless, his hand inches from the assassin's throat. Then slowly he stepped back. "Tie him up," he said. "We will question him later." Let out a breath she did not know she was holding. Ho turned to face her. In the dim light she saw something in his eyes that frightened her, a darkness, a void where the gentle man she knew should have been. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No, no, I am fine." "Good." He walked toward her, and with each step she saw the darkness fade. The coldness left his eyes, the hardness left his voice. By the time he reached her, he was Ho again, her Ho. "I am sorry you had to see that," he said quietly. "Is that who you really are? The man who just killed 4 people in less than 30 seconds?" He was silent for a moment. "It is part of who I am, a part I have tried to bury, a part I hoped would stay buried forever." "Can you bury it again?" "I do not know." He looked at his hands. They were steady even now. Some doors once opened are hard to close. From the direction of the great hall they heard shouting. The sounds of combat had stopped. Either the guards had won or the assassins had finished their work. "We need to go back," said. "We need to find my father." Ho nodded. He took her hand, the first time he had ever done so, and together they walked back toward the chaos. The great hall was a scene of devastation. Bodies littered the floor. Wounded guests moaned in pain. Guards moved through the room, checking for survivors. And there, standing near the throne, was Emperor, alive, bleeding from a wound on his arm, but alive. Father ran to him and embraced him. "Thank the stars," held her tightly. "When I saw the assassins heading for the throne, I thought, I am safe. Ho protected me." Looked over her shoulder at the human standing in the doorway. His eyes narrowed. "You did this." Ho said nothing. One of the guards approached. "My lord, we found 5 assassins dead in the east hallway. 1 survivor tied up and ready for questioning. Witnesses say the princess's husband killed them all, alone, unarmed." Stared at Ho for a long moment. Then he bowed his head. "It seems I owe you my daughter's life." "You owe me nothing. Protecting her is my duty and my honor. Nevertheless, you have my gratitude and my respect." Ho bowed in return, but when he straightened, his eyes found. In that moment, she understood something important. She had married a man of peace who carried a god of war inside him. Both were real, both were true, and both would do anything to keep her safe. She did not know whether to be grateful or terrified. Perhaps, she thought, both were the right answer. The palace was in chaos. Servants ran through the halls carrying medical supplies. Guards formed defensive lines around every entrance. Nobles huddled in groups, whispering fearfully about what had happened. But only had eyes for one thing. In the center of the great hall, 12 more assassins had been found, not wounded, not unconscious, dead, every single one of them. And according to the witnesses, Ho had killed them all before running to find her. 12 armed assassins, professional soldiers with military training and advanced weapons. Ho had destroyed them in less than a minute. Some of the guards who had watched it happen were still shaking. "He moved like smoke," one guard told his commander. "We could barely see him. One moment he was standing still. The next they were all on the ground. I have served in the Imperial Army for 30 years. I have never seen anything like it." "He did not even use a weapon at first," another guard added. "He just took theirs like it was nothing, like they were children playing with toys." Listened from the shadows. She had thought she understood her husband. She had thought the battle in the hallway had shown her his true capabilities. She had been wrong. The survivors were being treated in the medical wing, walked among them, offering comfort where she could. Many had lost friends tonight. Some had lost family. The celebration of peace had become a night of mourning. She found Ho in a quiet corner of the garden. He sat on a stone bench, staring at his hands. The blood had been washed off, but he held them like they belonged to someone else. "You should see a healer," said. "I am not injured." "There is blood on your clothes." "None of it is mine." She sat beside him. For a long moment neither spoke. The night air was cool and carried the scent of flowers. It should have been peaceful. Instead, it felt heavy with ghosts. "How many did you kill tonight?" she finally asked. 17 total, 12 in the Great Hall, 5 in the hallway. 17 people, in minutes. "Yes." "And you feel nothing?" Ho was quiet. Then he said, "I feel everything, I just do not show it." "What do you feel?" "Disgust at myself, at what I am capable of, at how easy it still is after all these years of trying to forget." He looked up at the stars. "When I was young, they told me I was gifted. They said my reflexes, my instincts, my ability to read combat situations, it was all beyond normal. They called me a prodigy, a natural killer." "You were a soldier, you fought in a war." "I was more than a soldier, I was a weapon. They pointed me at the enemy and the enemy died. That was my purpose, my only purpose." His voice grew bitter. "Do you know how many people I killed during the war? I do not. I stopped counting after the first 1,000. It became meaningless, just numbers." Did not know what to say. "I thought coming here would change things. I thought if I could just be quiet, be gentle, be the opposite of everything I used to be, maybe I could become someone new. Maybe I could deserve peace." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "But tonight proved the truth. I can wear different clothes. I can speak soft words. I can bow and smile and pretend. But underneath it all, I am still the same monster I always was." "You are not a monster. You did not see me in the Great Hall. You did not see the way I smiled when the killing started. Some dark part of me was happy. After a year of silence, it finally got to wake up." Reached out and took his hand. He flinched but did not pull away. "You saved my life tonight," she said. "You saved my father. You saved everyone in that hall. A monster would have run. A monster would have hidden. You stood in front of armed killers without a weapon and told them they would have to go through you. That was not bravery, that was arrogance. I knew they could not beat me. I knew it from the moment I saw them. They were good, well-trained, well-equipped, well-organized, and they were nothing compared to what I have faced before. That does not make you a monster. That makes you capable. Capable of terrible things. Capable of protecting the people you love." Ho finally looked at her. His eyes were wet. "I do not want you to be afraid of me." "I am not." "You should be, after tonight." "After tonight I know the truth. I know who you were, I know what you have done, and I know who you are trying to become." She squeezed his hand. "The man who sleeps on the floor because he does not want to make me uncomfortable. The man who helps old gardeners and teaches servants to read. The man who sits in the garden every morning trying to find peace. That is who you are, Ho. The soldier is part of you, yes, but it is not all of you." "How can you be sure?" "Because a weapon does not cry. A weapon does not feel disgust at its own nature. A weapon does not spend a year trying to be kind in a palace full of people who hate him." She lifted his hand and pressed it to her cheek. "You are a man, a good man, A man who has done terrible things and carries the weight of them every single day. Ho closed his eyes. A tear ran down his cheek. "I do not deserve your kindness," he whispered. "That is not for you to decide." They sat together in the garden until dawn. They did not speak much. They did not need to. Something had shifted between them, something important. For the first time since their wedding, felt like she truly knew her husband. And for the first time, she understood that knowing him meant accepting all of him, even the parts that frightened her. The next day, the interrogation of the surviving assassin revealed everything. His name was, and he was part of a faction called the True. They believed the peace treaty was a betrayal of everything their species stood for. They believed humans were inferior creatures who needed to be destroyed, not befriended. And they believed that killing Princess would reignite the war. "There are thousands of us," said proudly. "You may have stopped this attack, but there will be others. The Princess will never be safe. The peace will never last. One day we will finish what we started." Emperor sentenced him to death. The execution would be public, a message to anyone who might share his beliefs. But the damage was done. The peace was now fragile. Both sides looked at each other with suspicion. Politicians demanded increased security. Military leaders pushed for preparation against potential attacks. The goodwill of the past year began to crumble. Ho watched all of this with worried eyes. "They are going to use this attack to restart the war," he said to. "Not immediately, but slowly. Every new security measure will create tension. Every suspicious look will breed resentment. In a few years, something small will happen and everything will fall apart. What can we do?" "I do not know. I am a soldier, not a diplomat. I know how to end conflicts, not prevent them." "Then we need to find another way, together." Ho looked at her. "You would work with me, even after everything." "Especially after everything. You said the peace was built on our marriage. Then let us make that marriage mean something real. Let us show both our peoples that humans and can truly be partners." "How?" Smiled. "By being partners ourselves. By standing together in public and in private. By proving that our union is not just a political arrangement but a genuine bond. That would require you to trust me completely." "I do trust you. Even knowing what I am. Knowing what you are is why I trust you. You could have been a tyrant. With your abilities, you could have conquered worlds, ruled empires, done whatever you wanted. Instead, you chose to be kind. You chose to be gentle. You chose to sleep on a floor for 6 months because you did not want to make your wife uncomfortable." She took his hand again. "That is not the choice of a monster. That is the choice of a good man." Ho was silent for a long moment. Then slowly he smiled. It was a real smile, warm and full of something that looked like hope. "I will try to be worthy of that trust," he said. "You already are." That night, for the first time since their wedding, invited Ho to share her bed. Not for anything physical, just to sleep beside her. Just to be close. He accepted. They lay together in the darkness, side by side, listening to each other breathe. Outside, the world was uncertain and dangerous. The peace hung by a thread. Enemies plotted in the shadows. But in that moment, none of that mattered. In that moment, there was only the warmth of another person, the comfort of not being alone, the beginning of something that might have been love. Ho whispered, "Yes. Thank you for staying. Thank you for trying. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for seeing me, the real me, all of me." She reached out and found his hand in the darkness. They fell asleep like that, fingers intertwined, two former enemies discovering that perhaps they could be something more. And somewhere in the palace, guards whispered about the human who had killed 17 men without breaking a sweat. They called him a demon, a god of death, a force of nature that no army could stop. They did not know that the same man was currently holding his wife's hand and dreaming of a peaceful garden. Perhaps, thought just before sleep took her, That was the most remarkable thing about humans. They could be gods of war and gentle husbands at the same time. They could carry the weight of 1,000 deaths and still reach for something as simple as another person's hand. They could be monsters and saints, killers and healers, warriors and lovers. They could be everything all at once. And that more than anything made them terrifying and beautiful and worth fighting for. 3 days after the attack, woke to find Ho unconscious on the floor. He had risen at dawn as usual, walked to the garden as usual, sat down to meditate as usual. But when the servants came to bring him tea, they found him collapsed beside the fountain, his skin pale and cold. Ran through the palace in her nightclothes, ignoring the shocked looks from nobles and servants. She burst into the medical wing and found him lying on a bed, surrounded by healers who looked confused and worried. "What happened to him?" she demanded. The chief healer, an old woman named, shook her head. "We are not certain, Princess. His vital signs are stable, but there is something wrong with his internal organs. Massive scarring, old wounds that never healed properly. It is as if his body has been at war with itself for years." Why did he never say anything? Human physiology is strange. They can push through pain that would disable any. They hide injuries until their bodies simply give up. Looked at with sympathy. Your husband has been dying slowly for a long time. The stress of the attack must have accelerated the process. Felt her legs go weak. She grabbed the edge of the bed to keep from falling. Dying, he is dying. We can slow it down. Human medicine has made remarkable advances. With proper treatment, he could live for many more years, but hesitated. But what? But the damage is too extensive to fully repair. The wounds he suffered during the war, they never truly healed. He simply forced his body to keep functioning through willpower alone. The healer paused. I have never seen anything like it. By all logic, he should have died years ago. That he is still alive is either a miracle or a testament to his extraordinary stubbornness. Looked at her husband. Even unconscious, his face was peaceful. He looked younger somehow, without the weight of awareness pressing down on him. "Leave us," she said. The healers pulled a chair close to the bed and took Ho's hand. "You fool," she whispered. "You absolute fool. All this time you were falling apart and you never told me. You never asked for help. You just kept going, kept pretending, kept being strong for everyone else." His hand was warm in hers. She could feel his pulse, slow and steady despite everything. "That night when you fought those assassins, you made everything worse, did you not? You pushed your body past its limits to protect me. You tore yourself apart so I could live." Tears ran down her cheeks. "Why? Why would you do that? I am not worth your life." She stayed by his side for hours. Servants brought food she did not eat. Nobles came to offer condolences she did not hear. Emperor visited and sat with her in silence, understanding that sometimes the only thing a father can do is simply be present. As evening fell, Ho's eyes finally opened. "I am here," she squeezed his hand. "I am right here." "What happened?" "You collapsed. The healers say you have been hiding severe injuries for years. They say you should be dead." Her voice cracked. "Why did you not tell me?" Ho was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled weakly. "Would it have changed anything? You did not want me here. You did not want to know me. Why would I burden you with my problems?" "Because you are my husband. Because I care about you. Because—" She stopped, her breath catching in her throat. Because I love you, you impossible man. I love you and you are dying, and I only just figured it out." Ho's eyes widened. For a moment he looked utterly lost, like a child who had been given a gift he did not know how to accept. "You love me." "Of course I love you. I have loved you for months. I was just too proud and too stupid to admit it." She brought his hand to her lips and kissed his fingers. "Please do not die, please. I only just found you. I cannot lose you now." Ho reached up with his other hand and touched her face, wiping away her tears. I am not going to die, he said. Not yet, not when I finally have something worth living for. You promise? I promise. She leaned down and pressed her forehead to his. They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, sharing the same warmth. I love you too, Ho whispered. I think I have loved you since the first moment I saw you, standing on that landing platform, looking at me like I was dirt beneath your feet. You were the most magnificent thing I had ever seen. Laughed through her tears. I was terrible to you. You were honest. You did not pretend to be happy about the arrangement. You did not hide your feelings behind false smiles. I respected that. You respected my rudeness. I respected your strength, your pride, your refusal to be anything other than exactly who you were, he smiled. And I thought perhaps if I could earn your respect in return, I might finally be worthy of something good. You are worthy. You have always been worthy. I am beginning to believe that. The healers returned with a treatment plan. Ho would need regular medical attention, a carefully controlled diet, and reduced physical activity. No more fighting. No more pushing his body past its limits. The soldier in you must rest, said firmly. If you want to live, you must learn to be gentle with yourself. Ho looked at, I think I can manage that. Over the following weeks, rarely left his side. She read to him from poetry. She told him stories from her childhood. She shared meals with him in his recovery room, ignoring the scandalized looks from servants who thought a princess should not act like a common nurse. Slowly, Ho grew stronger. The color returned to his skin. His smile came more easily. The shadows that had always lurked in his eyes began to fade. And as he healed, so did the relationship between their peoples. News of the attack had spread across both empires, but so had news of what followed. Stories of the human prince who had killed 17 assassins to protect his wife. Stories of the princess who had stayed by his bedside through his recovery. Stories of a marriage that had started as a political arrangement and become something real. Humans and alike were moved by the tale. Here was proof that their species could truly care for each other. Here was evidence that peace was not just a treaty, but a possibility for genuine connection. The true lost support. Their message of hatred rang hollow against the image of a human husband and his wife, holding hands and facing the future together. 3 months after the attack, Ho was well enough to appear in public. He and walked together through the palace gardens, where diplomats from both species had gathered for a memorial honoring those who had died. Are you nervous? Asked. Terrified, Ho admitted, but I have faced worse. You have faced assassins and wars and death itself. This is just a garden party. Garden parties are far more dangerous. Assassins will kill you quickly. Politicians will drain your soul slowly. Laughed. It felt good to laugh. It felt good to be alive, to be here, to be with him. They entered the garden together. All eyes turned to them. For a moment there was silence. Then Emperor began to applaud. The nobles joined in. Then the human diplomats. Then the servants, the guards, everyone present. The sound rose like thunder, filling the garden with recognition and respect. Ho bowed his head humbly, stood tall beside him, her hand firmly clasped in his. After the applause died down, approached them. My daughter, my son. He looked at Ho with genuine affection. I admit when you first arrived I had my doubts. A human warrior sent to marry my precious daughter. I thought you would be crude, violent, unworthy. I understand, Your Majesty. But I was wrong. You have proven yourself a true partner to, a true protector of our people, and a true bridge between our species. Placed a hand on Ho's shoulder. Welcome to our family, officially, completely, without reservation. Ho's eyes glistened. Thank you, that means more than you know. That night Ho walked alone through the palace. The celebrations had ended, the guests had departed, and the world was quiet. What happens now? Ho asked. Now we live. We build the future we want together. We show the galaxy that peace is not just possible but worth fighting for. Fighting for peace, that sounds like something a human would say. Perhaps I have learned from my husband. They stopped by a window overlooking the city. Below, millions of lights twinkled like stars, each one a home, a family, a life that would continue because of the peace they had helped build. I never thought I would find this, Ho said softly. Happiness, purpose, love. After everything I have done, I never believed I deserved it. You do deserve it, we both do. How can you be so certain? Turned to face him. She cupped his face in her hands, looking into those brown eyes that had once seemed so ordinary and now seemed like the most beautiful things in the universe. Because we fought for it, because we earned it, because we chose each other even when it would have been easier to walk away, she smiled. That is what love is, Ho, a choice we make every day to stay, to try to be better than we were yesterday. And you choose me. Always, from now until the stars burn out. She kissed him then, soft and slow and full of promise. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her like she was the most precious thing in all creation. And she was. To him, she always would be. Outside, the twin suns began to rise, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. A new day was dawning for both their peoples. A day of hope, a day of possibility, a day that would not have existed without a princess who wed a human for peace. And watched him fight like a god of war. And loved him anyway. That perhaps was the greatest miracle of all, not the fighting, not the killing, not the supernatural abilities that made armies tremble. The greatest miracle was that two people from opposite sides of a war had found each other in the ruins of hatred and built something beautiful. Something worth living for. Something worth dying for. Something that would last longer than empires, longer than stars, longer than time itself. Love. True love. The only thing in the universe that could turn enemies into family, strangers into, and a god of war into a gentle husband who slept on the floor because he did not want to make his wife uncomfortable. Smiled as the sun warmed her face. This, she thought, is what peace really looks like. Not the absence of war, but the presence of love. And she finally understood why the humans had sent their greatest warrior to be her husband. Not as a show of power, but as a gift. The gift of a man who could have destroyed worlds, and chose instead to build one. With her. Forever.